Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, and it is Wednesday, December the 9th, 5:30 in the morning here in Calgary, and I'm happy to be here again today to share with you, just some information regarding child abuse prevention, child abuse. This is one child abuse survivor to another, and I thought this might be a great place for people to share just a quick story or bring up a topic that they would like to know more about or get some information. I myself am constantly searching for good information online and elsewhere regarding healing from like domestic violence and child abuse. So I'm so glad if you're joining me this morning. I hope that you'll get something out of this. And if you have any comments or suggestions for me, please be sure and let me know. My guest call-in number is area code 917-889-3736. And you're welcome to phone in and tell your story or just chat with me this morning. That's fine. A person can never have too many friends. And so, I just thought this would be a great medium just to sort of almost be an encouragement for your day out there as you're walking out your healing process. I know I'm still, I'm very close to being, very a positive feeling that I have completely turned this whole thing around in my life and taken the abuse that I suffered as a child and now brought it to something that can be used for positive, for something positive. And that's what, that just makes me really happy, because for a long time I was just suffering along in silence and didn't reach out, and I didn't want wasn't looking for help. I was just internalizing the whole thing all the time, and only told a few people who I trusted enough to, or who were interested really enough to talk about what was going on in my youth and in my childhood. Because I had told a lot of people that I was using drugs and stuff, but they wouldn't understand why. And that's a lot of times you see these people out there. I do, especially living in Calgary. There's a large problem with young people on drugs, and you sit there and you think, what kind of home life must they have? Because people don't generally self-destruct for no reason. And so before, I always hope that people, before they make any judgments, would try to put themselves in that person's shoes and walk out their daily walk, and then they'd be able to see why and how they actually got so far down like that. So, like my brothers, for instance, were homeless. Here, two of my brothers were homeless quite often in Calgary. And it was all due to drug use and just the fact that they didn't know how to cope. They had no coping skills. They were not, as young men growing up in the home, were not given that encouragement or even the the education. Your parents have a duty and a job to help you to grow as an adult, to help you make the transition from a child into an adult. And when you don't get that, and you don't reach out for help, you stay in that area that you're just not making the right decisions. And so they quite often did not make the right decisions and ended up on the street and were doing drugs, and both of their lives are sadly ended due to drug use, one suicide and one drug overdose. So I certainly have seen my share of sadness and sorrow regarding drug use. I've lost lots of friends and stuff, but it all stemmed, almost all of it, from child abuse and the issues that surround it. So if anyone has a story that they'd like to tell, or has a topic that they'd like to bring up, or some great resources for me or for anyone out there who's listening, please let me know. My chat room is open on Blog Talk Radio. I'm coming to you actually live right now from blogtalkradio.com, and this is a great medium for people who are looking for help. I suggest that you get on Blog Talk Radio as a registered user of the actual database, and then you can check out all the great programming on here. There is some awesome stuff, and people have a lot to say, and I've been tuning in when I have time just to listen to what people have to say, because there's some great information on here. And so my guest call-in number, if you'd like to phone in, is area code 917. I was going to give you my other one, 917-889-3736. And I also have that chat room, so if you'd like to send me a quick message. That's fine too. Just make sure you mark private if you want it to be private. So yeah, I'm not a counselor. I don't have any legal. I can't give any legal advice or anything like that. Mostly I'm just a survivor walking it out like everyone else. I've actually been, working on it steady for since as far back as I can remember, because I wanted to survive. Before the age of 21, I actually was not all that interested in or concerned with my future. And I actually have 2 blogs where I sort of talk about all that. If you're interested in looking at those, they're on Blogger. Not So Fond Memories, Growing Up in an Abusive Home. That's my story, and you can read that there. And also, there's another blog that I'm doing that's for school and for MRU, Mount Royal University up here in Calgary, and that's Promote Positive Change for Human Rights Abuses. And so, yeah, you're welcome to check those out. They're both on Blogger. And you can send me an email if you're not sure how to get to those sites. I can give you that information. But today I just thought we'd talk about, adult survivors and re-victimization, because that's where I had left off yesterday. And we were talking about the fact that, as a person, growing up in an abusive environment, you just don't develop a secure attachment style. So you have problems screening out untrustworthy people. This was off a website, wearesurvivors.org, by Diane Champey. I'm thinking that's how you pronounce her last name, Champe. She goes through and talks about all this great information. She says, and I thought what we'd talk about today is I'd read this from her blog, and then we'd just talk about it a little bit. Here's what she has to say. A lot of us learned to numb out to our surroundings because staying present while the abuse was occurring would have been too painful. Survivors who numb out as adults risk not being fully aware of their surroundings, especially when it becomes dangerous, and thus are susceptible to being hurt again. So yeah, if you, like for instance, if I, because of my childhood abuse, if I actually just went numb about it and was actually just living sort of in this numb world, I might not be making the proper decisions and looking out for people who might not be all that trustworthy. And so that's what she's talking about there. And also she says, sometimes when memories resurface, they naturally elicit painful and angry feelings. When these feelings overwhelm survivors, some become very angry and hostile towards others. This sometimes puts survivors in harm's way when the other person retaliates. Too many survivors did not learn how to develop healthy boundaries. In fact, we were taught we had no right to any boundaries, not in our personal space or with our own bodies. As adults, we risk being victimized when we don't exercise our right to say no to behavior we don't like. And that is just so true. As an adult survivor of child abuse, that is just so true what Diane Champey is talking about there. I know in my own personal experience, this happened many, many years ago, and it's actually in my blog. A friend of mine, we had all gone out and we were partying and had been drinking, and we're at a bar, and a friend of mine was also doing drugs at the time, and so he became very abusive and violent towards my best friend. This was her boyfriend, who she had been seeing for years, and was very abusive. We were in a restaurant. We went to the restroom in a all night, like 24-hour coffee shop, and me and her went to the restroom, and he was actually sort of half passed out at the booth. Well, he woke up and became very agitated because he couldn't find her, because he had control issues, right? He was very abusive and violent young man, and so we were all in the ladies' restroom and just kind of straightening up before we went home. This was real in the wee hours of the morning, and this guy, he barged into the restroom and started beating up my friend, who was standing right next to me. Well, he had previously, in an incident, punched me in the face and slammed me up against a wall in a fit of rage at their apartment. This is actually in my blog. You can read that if you want to. Well, it was all it was all, just due to heavy-duty drug use, and he was just out of his mind. And so he was slamming her head up against the wall, and I remember standing there, and because of my own past abuse and my witnessing domestic violence in my own home, and the fact that I had tried to protect my mother and then was thrown across the room and sort of kicked and screamed at it for trying to protect my mother, which was what I thought I was doing. That's in my blog as well. I didn't reach out to help protect my friend. And so as he was slamming her head into the wall, I was just numb. I was just stuck in that sort of, it was like being, like I couldn't move. It was very, like a weird feeling. I wanted to help her, and I wanted to grab him and grab him or just jump on him and try to get him to stop, and I couldn't even move. I was just frozen. That's the one time that I remember being kind of just frozen with fear. And I thought for sure that I'd always be able to protect or stand up next to somebody. But when you survive child abuse and stuff like that, and a lot of times, you just don't know. Like I could have screamed to him to stop or whatever, but I couldn't get the words to come out of my mouth, just out of fear. So being a victim, sometimes you don't always exercise your right to say no. And she couldn't do anything about it. She just wasn't strong enough to get away from him. But her mother actually came into saw what was going on, came into the restroom and actually got him off to stop abusing her. And I'll never forget that, because I had stood up for my mother against my dad, and I thought that I was always going to be able to be that type of person to protect someone, but I actually froze. So when you deal with stuff like severe child abuse or sexual abuse, a lot of times you don't know how to handle things, and you just freeze. And I would, nowadays I think my decisions would be a little bit different on how I would handle something like that, but just because I've come so far. So yeah, this is just stuff that we can talk about here. 15 minutes every day, 5:30, Monday through Friday, and then I'll be doing my other Blog Talk radio show. That would be on Wednesday nights at 9:30 and Sunday mornings 10 o'clock. Child abuse prevention and human rights abuses prevention is up to us. And so if you'd like to phone in, you certainly can. Area code 917-889-3736. And I sure hope you're getting something off of this. If you have any, if you're just feeling like you're in danger and you need help, make sure you reach out and get the help that you need. I've only got a couple minutes left here, and I'm going to read out some hotline numbers. Child abuse hotline number, 24 hours. This is up in Canada, 1-800-387-5437. Here is the family violence information up in Canada. This is 310-1818. Kids Help Phone in Canada, 1-800-668-6868. And Protection for Persons in Care, 1-888-357-9339. Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter, 403-234-7233. And make sure you reach out and get the help that you need. Don't sit and suffer in silence, and don't stay in an abusive relationship. It's better to get out and get on your own than to have your life threatened or your children's lives threatened. And I just can't say enough about that. And please visit websites like Dreamcatchers for Abused Children and the Silver Braid Survivor Support Network. Just type that into your browser, the Silver Braid Survivor Support Network for sexual abuse and domestic abuse. We have Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. Just type that into your browser. It'll bring up all their websites. And I just hope you have a great day. And I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing from you on my show. Or if you're tuning in, I hope you'll get something out of this as we walk it out and learn from one child abuse survivor to another how to walk out our daily walk. Take care. Have a great day. And make sure that you just remain positive and remain steady. Straight and steady. And send me a chat if you'd like to chat. And we'll see you tomorrow on One Child Abuse Survivor to Another.